Hi, welcome to the coaching game, and it's Coaches Creating Change.
Coaches Creating Change. It must be if Laurie and I are together.
That's right. My lovely, lovely guest is Terry Yoffe.
Oh, hello, Laurie.
And we have worked ourselves up to ICF Core Competency.
Number 6.
6.
Exactly. It still falls under communicating effectively.
Yes.
And last show it was active listening.
Right.
And this one is called powerful questioning.
Now, you know why she's emphasizing that? Because I'm going, we can do powerful questions. And she goes, it's not questions, it's questioning. How you ask the question. I went, okay, now I have nothing to say. So Terry's going to run the show. No.
Right. Well, and I think that many people really get hung up with that.
Yeah, I do.
Because they always think it's powerful questions.
Which are important.
However, it's the questioning
right.
that's really important. And here is the definition by ICF. Asking questions that reveal the information needed for maximum benefit to the coaching relationship and the client.
Yes.
So what does that mean to you?
You know what? It means so much to me. It really does.
Okay.
And I was just kidding. Of course, I have something to say always. But one thing that I noticed, because I'm doing some final assessments for IPAC right now, and what we are taught, and I don't know if you were, but we are taught, don't get into the story. Don't get into the story. Right. And which is fine, but I'm interpreting that as don't jump into the box with the client. But get the information you need, and it's like don't be afraid to ask questions that are going to give you information that tell you how you can coach better. Did you have that same training? Don't get into the story. It's like in your head. It's like
that's my tagline.
Is it? Well, see, two different coaches.
Stop with the stories. So, from my perspective, it means that we can very easily get seduced into the story the client tells us and lose track of what's under the story, what's really going on.
Right.
And coaches will coach around the story.
Or, in my case, what I'm talking about, they don't have the story, but they'll try to coach anyway. My example, and I hear what you're saying, that's so right, and that's the coach's problem, to stay detached but yet empathetic and responsive and observant. But like if I'm saying, what do you want to work on? I want to work on a New Year's resolution. I have had people try to coach me for 20 minutes, and they don't know what the resolution is. It's like,
coach you?
Yes. When I was playing client for the final assessment, and it's like, wait, don't you want to know what we're talking about? No, they didn't want to get into the story. There's a dance, like with everything. There's a dance. Get your information, and then stay out of the story.
So this is where. So how do you not let them do the coaching?
Exactly.
And this is where not the question, but the questioning comes into play.
Yes, absolutely.
That a very adroit coach who can see they're building a story, that's not what they're here for. They think they are, and we all have stories that are very elaborate. I call them Hans Christian Andersen stories.
Right.
However, it's what's driving the story. So it's figuring out what made them create the story in the first place, and then get under it to have them look at their story and to hopefully have that shift or that aha moment to say, wait a second, and stop dead in their tracks.
That's interesting. Are you saying that the story is the symptom and the coach's job is to find the source?
So my training, the small agenda is the story. That's the doorway. The big agenda.
I love that, a doorway. That's a good metaphor. Yeah, I like that. Okay.
The big agenda is looking at what we can glean from the story, like, summarizing and reflecting on. So, it sounds like blah, 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 blah. Does this best describe what you're saying, or how does that land? Yes. And then come back with, so what exactly is, and you find that one wedge,
different branch, so they can look at it a different way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. I think we're on the same page.
we
got
we're
there
always
differently.
on the same page.
But we got there a little bit differently.
That's looking at the questions you ask, whatever the questions are, that reveals information needed. And maybe it's our job to kind of open the door a little bit more by challenging them and
asking a question that can give them a different insight or a different viewpoint of what's going on. Well, before we talk about powerful questioning,
of it.
I do too. It's like, oh, and she tells me 2 minutes before we're going on. I was like, oh, okay, let me see what I can come up with here. But let's talk about unpowerful questions, which are, we all know about closed-ended questions, and you're going to get more information if it's open-ended.
Okay.
But I find that sometimes you will, like, I'll keep using the New Year's resolution. You'll go, I have a New Year's resolution, and I want to lose 20 pounds. And they'll go, okay, how are you going to lose that 20 pounds? And it's like, yes, it's very good to give the power back to the client, but it's like you're asking, well, okay, how are you going to solve your problem? Well, if I knew that, I wouldn't have called a coach. So it's too general, or the questions that are like, how are you going to solve the problem, aren't helpful unless the person has the answer. But if they do, they wouldn't be paying you.
So sometimes in the story, they'll give you they say, oh, by the way, blah, blah. And you may think that's insignificant, but that might be what's kind of embedded in the whole story.
Yes.
And, oh, I want to lose 20 pounds. Well, my hunch is there's something other than the 20 pounds.
Sure.
What's it going to do for them? It's
20 pounds is a symptom, and it's like, what's the real deal? Yeah.
It's a struggle they're having, and it could be it could be body image. It could be something else. It could be, where else does this show up in your life?
It could be an excuse. It could be, it could be fear of success. It could be, there's just so many possibilities. And that's where the coach comes in. It's like, okay, 20 pounds is easy, and that's a great, smart goal, and we'll get there. But let's find out why we aren't there right now, and what's going on. But by asking, well, how do you want to do that? That's not helpful. You gotta get a little more creative, I think, and dig a little deeper. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what you said was, non-powerful questions would be a closed, so they have to say yes or no.
Right, giving them the option of saying no, and then where do you go from there?
Exactly.
Then you're stuck.
Exactly, but a really open-ended question, and what I learned from a great coach was to pretty much start as much as you can every question with a what.
Every question with a what, okay.
Which is really a wonderful learning for me. Because when I listen to other coaches, they don't do that.
No.
But it really opens the door. And it's not easy when you're having a conversation to think about, how do I create the question with a what? Or you could say where, or, later on a how.
Or when, but that's when you're kind of setting up the plan. But
Right.
But start every question with a what. Okay, I'll go along with that.
It's brilliant. Unfortunately, I cannot take credit for it.
Oh, you can.
But I learned
Marian
so
will
much.
understand.
So I want to have one quote.
Oh,
which
just one?
Which I found this morning, which truly embodies exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, good.
So asking the proper questions is the central action of transformation. Questions are the key that causes the secret doors of the psyche to swing open. And it was said by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who is an American poet and author who wrote, I think, Run with the Wolves. That was a movie.
Oh, okay.
Running with the Wolves.
All right.
And she is a Jungian psychoanalyst.
Wow. What was the last thing about a door? I'm into doors today.
Right.
I don't
Questions are the key. This is where powerful questioning comes in. Are the key that causes the secret doors of the psyche to swing open.
Wow. Now that is powerful. Yeah.
So I had a client who was a guy who has been in a company and wanted to leave. One of our assignments was to look at how he could leave. And every time we started talking about it and what it meant, he would say, well, I need to see my managing director because I need to see what the next steps are, and then I need to see this, and I need to see that, and I stopped him and I said, so what I've heard is you're looking at all of the possibilities, and what is that about if you want to leave?
Yeah.
It sounds like you're still wanting to be there. And he stopped dead in his tracks and did not say a word. He said, oh my God, you're right. Now that was an aha moment.
That was an aha moment created not by coming up with the proper question, but by listening to everything that he said and then taking it and putting the dots together.
Right.
Just connecting the dots, which was what a good coach does. Yeah. But it's hard to do that sometimes if you get into the story. So I hear what you were saying in the beginning. Yeah.
It's very difficult, and sometimes I'll stop somebody dead in their tracks. And I will say, okay, enough with the story.
If you're looking for a kinder, gentler coach, that would be me. But yes, go ahead.
I'm not. They hired me to challenge them.
Yes.
And so what about the story, this elaborate story? You've spent 15 minutes talking about this. What has it gotten you, or what does this mean for you?
Right.
Because people love to talk about themselves.
And sometimes they get confused and think, well, that's why I'm hiring a coach, because she will listen. And they will, and we'll listen, definitely.
Well,
but there's also an obligation on our part to move the action forward. You know, it's like, you're here, we got to get you moving.
Right.
So even if it's backwards, we got to get you moving somewhere. So it's, those questions, the questionings are very important. Yeah.
It's also, if you let a client go for 45 minutes or an hour talking about their story, well, what's been accomplished in the entire time? And I have a client who I've been working with, and she needs to hear herself talk about it to help her unravel a little bit.
And that you need to know also, is that the kind of client you have? Because sometimes the aha moments come as they are speaking, and that's fine. You don't, it's such a delicate thing because you don't want to interrupt. Yeah, you don't want to interrupt because you are being paid to listen. But you have to decide when is that helpful and when is it now getting in the way of what needs to be done.
Right.
And I think a good way, and we talked about this, is right up front going, well, what's going to make this successful for you today, and then keeping it on track. And if it's telling that story is going to be 20 minutes of your hour time, then maybe that's not that successful. I don't know. Or maybe if she's coming up with new ideas, you have to decide.
And sometimes what happens with some clients is in their telling it, they come up with their own thought.
Yes.
You
Which
know,
was down there anyway, but no one had asked them the right question.
Exactly.
So that's good. Another question that isn't good, and I find, coaches, we are told, no closed-ended questions, so everything open-ended is good. But if you say, well, how would it be if you made that call at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning and just told him, yeah, that's really not a closed-ended question. You're making a suggestion. Whereas if you asked, what next step could you take, that lets the client decide what the best action is. But a lot of people try to disguise that word, or how about if, and that's
and
just...
then they tell them, how about
Yes,
if you do
how
blah,
about
blah.
if you decided there's another way to get into the board meeting? What is another way you can get into the board meeting? You got to broaden that out and let them come up with their own solutions. Because if you're coming up with a solution, it's going to be good for you, but there's no guarantee it's going to be good for the client.
Well, there is a caveat to that.
Of course.
Which is, so what would it be like if you blah, blah, blah? How does that land for you?
Exactly.
Or how does that sound? So you're saying something and then putting it in their lap to either say, oh, yeah, no.
No, it's great. It's fine to ask for. In fact, that's a powerful question. It's fine to say, can I make a suggestion or can I make an observation and get the client's assent?
Right.
And then don't be attached to the answer.
Right, exactly.
But just say, okay, how does that land with you? How do you feel about what I just said?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that's such a good point. That's good.
As long as I would never say, here's my advice.
Right.
But, so here's a thought or an insight that I've just had, given what you've said, what might be another route for you?
Right.
Or sometimes if somebody is struggling, I'll say, so what has worked for you in the past?
Absolutely.
That you could look at and bring it forward into this situation.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. There's a couple ways you can take this. You can take their goal and make it into one. A powerful question would be, okay, let's go to this 20 pounds. that's a constant goal of mine. Let's go with that and say, okay, how else can you look at this situation? What is, like Terry said, what is the 20 pounds? What does that mean? Does that mean new clothes? Does that mean you're feeling healthier? Let's look at this another way, because the 20 pounds is, so they get them to look at their situation another way. Or you can get them to look at themselves another way. Well, you haven't done it for 20 years, so, what's wrong with this goal? What's stopping?
Right.
What are your challenges? What's getting in the way? And then it's like, okay, maybe the outcome could be different. It could be like, okay, maybe 20 pounds isn't your goal. Maybe just feeling healthier and honoring a commitment of doing that should be the goal. So there are a whole bunch of ways to just take what the client says and make them kind of look at it another way.
And yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's all about having them look at something a little differently.
Yes.
And then exploring it and seeing. My I don't want to use the word concern, is we throw around words like goals.
I agree. I agree.
And sometimes unless they back it up with something else, like, oh, I know, I can put Post-its up and that's what I'm going to do. Well, that's like a Band-Aid, because for me, coaching and working with somebody, a goal isn't always, it's what do they need to do to get to that goal, to achieve it?
A step.
What's the
Absolutely.
transformation?
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's not only, what strategies can we put in place? And I get clients that, okay, what strategy can I put in place to get that done? Well, it's always about them. If people inherently can transform and change the way they think about something, the rest is easy. And people look for the exterior.
Right,
rather
and
than
it's
the
jump
interior.
to the 20 pounds. How are you going to get there? And you could certainly say eat carrots and run
Right.
for 2 miles. That's not the problem. If they could
Right.
do that already.
Right.
So that's the goal. But I agree with you. The journey and the path I think are so important, and the awareness that you bring to the client as you're helping them. Say, okay, what's stopping you? What will motivate you to do this? Yeah, so you're right. And I don't know about your training because we did different schools, but it was like everything has to end with a SMART goal, and you got to have it tied. So
yeah.
it's like maybe it's not a SMART goal. Maybe it's the first step. Here's the first step, and that could just be researching nutritional benefits of carrots. I don't know, whatever it is. But so it doesn't have to be a full-fledged, right-on 100% plan. I agree with you. I think we do throw that. You've got to have a goal. No, maybe a path.
Well, yes. And today, what's important is transformation and change, because we live in a very chaotic world, and everything, change is the new norm.
Yes.
And it's about purpose, vision, and fulfillment. That's what's important. So with the 20 pounds, so what would be what is the, again, end game for you with the 20 pounds?
Right.
What will it do for you?
What will it do for you? How will you feel when you accomplish it?
Right.
It's like, are you sure that's the goal?
Right.
Is that really what you want? And if it is, full steam ahead. And if it's not, let's explore. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Let's explore.
Yeah.
Or, and you have to say, if someone keeps saying that for 4 or 5 years now, I'm just saying, and you have to go, really? Are you sure that's what you really want? Because it's not happening.
Right.
So what else is it? What is circumventing that? And let's go explore that. That will be so much more rewarding than saying, okay, you're on 1,200 calories a day and you're going to run 2 days a week.
Yeah,
That's
right.
Finding the underlying cause is going to be so
Right,
much
right.
more beneficial to, and not that they can just use it there, they can use it anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if they've been trying for X years and it hasn't worked, well, what's really behind it?
Exactly.
Because, if they've not made the effort and that's where they're going towards, then there's something they're not dealing with.
Right, and maybe the 20 pounds is not the real incentive.
of
so
course
what
not.
would it be?
Right.
Let's find it and drop the 20 pounds right now and let's find out what's really going on.
Right.
So, but that's all a part of the questioning that a coach has to do. Just really, like you say, if you're going to get into the story and let the person keep telling you the same thing, that's not helpful. So you have to sort of say, okay, well, let's hold up. And what I hear you saying is, now let's look at it from this angle. And one of my favorite I think it's powerful questioning, is when the person's really stuck, then I will go, okay, well, if your mother was in this situation, what would you tell her? Or if your best friend was in there? Because we love to give advice. We never listen to advice, but we love to give it.
Exactly.
So if you can take them out of the box again and say, okay, now you're the advisor, what would you do? So I think maybe as a part of a toolbox will be come up with some powerful questions like that. That you can pull out when it's like, ooh, I don't know what to say now. Let me figure out what else I can do. What's your favorite question?
I don't know. I
have
don't
a lot.
have a one or two, but
I like that one, and I like what's the worst case scenario.
Oh.
And then just let them work through the whole thing, and then they go, okay, now you've solved that problem. Now let's move ahead and let's be positive about it. Yeah.
And one thing I might do is I ask them to kind of go up in a helicopter and look down,
a big
so
perspective.
they're getting a different perspective.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
So what if you could get up in a helicopter and look down? So you're taking them out of the situation. What would you notice? What would you see?
Okay.
Also, if somebody else were here, what would you tell them in the situation?
Yeah, exactly. That just takes you out. It takes the client out of the box, and it's like, okay, well, I know what I tell them. It might not work for me, but this is the logical thing to do.
Exactly.
I'll tell you another trick on what I think is a powerful question. I do. I love to use the scale because it gives you an idea. It's like, well, how important is that goal to you?
Right.
And if I go, oh, you know what, it's a 3.
Okay.
And so rather than go, well, how can we get you to a 4? Go, why isn't it a 2? And that puts it right on a positive thing. It's like, oh, well, you know, there really is this and this. It's not so bad. And so just reverse things. Just shake it up a little. Shake it up and see what comes up. Because sometimes you have very savvy clients, and they've been through a lot of counseling. They've been through a lot of psychotherapy. Who knows what they've been through? Just to shake that question up and make it a little different. And then, oh, well, why isn't it? Why did I rate it a hot 3? You know, it could have been a 1.
Could have been a 1.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And this is where going back to presence and comes in, is what we talked about, is we don't know what questions to ask because we don't know what the client is going to come with.
Exactly.
So it's really being present and in the moment, that you trust your ability to really active listening. Listening
Here we go. Yep.
to what's being said. And in that moment, intuitively figuring out what am I going to ask.
I think 2 of your best friends when it comes to powerful questioning is curiosity
Right.
and courage. It's like I'm going to put myself out with that question. If it doesn't work, okay, you know,
yeah,
don't get attached to
absolutely.
the answer. But it's like, don't be afraid, because I've said this before. I was raised down south, and it's mind your business. That's not your business. And it's like, well, no, now it is. But it's a hard inbred thing to get rid of. It's like, oh, that's really not my business. It's like, no, but that's why you're getting paid. So I think you have to have a little courage and say, I'm going to shake this up, and I hope, you know, that I can pull it out if it really goes down in the toilet. And but if not, you know, you're just not attached to it, and just be curious. It's like, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
5 years, you're trying to lose 20 pounds.
Exactly.
What up? Yeah,
Right.
so yeah.
And also, on the flip side, is make sure not to ask, which I love to do, but I try not to, is nosy questioning.
Yeah. What? Yeah.
Right, where it doesn't matter. It doesn't. It's not important.
Right.
You know, in the whole scheme of what you're trying
And
to
again,
do.
we keep talking about dance, and our next session is going to be a dance studio, but
Right.
dancing between curiosity
Right.
and nosiness. It's like, you know, and what's going to be helpful and what's not. So we keep, it's delicate. It's delicate.
It's a delicate, balance, and certainly powerful questioning. And I think we are coming up to.
Oh, we're coming up to our end. And next
how quickly.
I know, when you're having a good time.
Yeah.
And the next time is going to be direct communication. So we'll deal with that. But hopefully, it's clarified some things for me.
Right.
I love your door metaphor, and I think I might use that.
Wow.
So,
Well,
Carrie Yoffe, as usual, it's
thank
a
you,
joy.
Thank you, Laurie. Thank you, everyone. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yep. Take care.